The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content of these articles is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org. The Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from USA Today for Monday, the 27th of July. Your readers today are David Hayes
and Tom Scanlon.
The first article is from the news section. It is titled, Anxiety Questions Follow the Death of Nolan Wells. The case raises safety fears and skepticism for justice. The article is submitted by India Yancey Bragg. When Mississippi teenager Nolan Wells disappeared after a July 4th boat trip, questions immediately began to swirl about what happened to him and why. Nearly 3 weeks after his body was found, many of those questions remain unanswered. Parallel investigations into the 18-year-old's death have revealed little publicly so far. Wells' family fears his death will be written off as an accidental drowning, citing conflicting witness accounts and unusual cell phone activity. The mysterious death has attracted speculation from the public nationwide and attention from major true crime figures like Nancy Grace. But the death of a young black man after an outing with a predominantly white group of friends has also dredged up fears among black Americans that they aren't safe in such environments and that the justice system won't handle their cases properly if something goes wrong, according to Nadine Smith, President and CEO of civil rights group Color of Change. Wells' family has launched an independent investigation citing lack of trust in law enforcement in a state with a long history of racist violence. Officials in Jackson County have said they have not found signs of foul play but are continuing to investigate. There are two stories unfolding here. One is the mystery of what happened to him, and the other is that it has surfaced in the American consciousness, especially among black Americans, some familiar anxieties, said Smith. It's really a story of the unhealed history and lived pattern recognition in America. Officials said Wells traveled with friends to Horn Island, about 10 miles off the coast of Mississippi, to celebrate the 4th. According to the National Park Service, the island is accessible only via private boat, and there is no staff, drinking water, shelter facilities, or communication on the island. GPS data obtained by CBS News from the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources showed the boat reportedly arrived at 11:14 a.m. and left at 4:31 p.m. Family attorney Ben Crump has said Wells' friends reported they last saw him around 3 p.m. Christine Wansley, Wells' mother, said a friend of his contacted her about 11 that night, setting off a frantic search. Wansley said the family met with law enforcement around midnight and were eventually able to track down Wells' phone and his car, which were at different locations. Wells' father, Elmore Wansley, said he left by boat around 5 a.m. to search for his son. The Jackson County Sheriff's Office led a land and water search July 5th and 6th, assisted by the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, National Park employees, the United Cajun Navy, and others. The search ended July 6th after the United Cajun Navy announced a body was discovered on the northwest end of the island. The body was later identified as Wells. In a recent interview with Grace, Todd Terrell, founder and president of the Cajun Navy, said Wells was found face down, fully clothed. The United Cajun Navy later clarified that Wells was wearing only swim trunks. An independent autopsy conducted by forensic pathologist Roger Mitchell and paid for by former NFL player Colin Kaepernick could not determine the cause or manner of Wells' death, Crump said on July 22nd. Bailey C. Martin, a spokesman for the Mississippi Department of Public Safety, confirmed on July 22nd that the state medical examiner completed an initial autopsy on Wells on July 7th at 8:30 a.m. and the investigation is still active and ongoing. County Sheriff John Ledbetter said shortly after Wells' body was recovered that his team had found no sign of foul play at that time. But at this point, there are more questions than answers, and investigators should avoid making assumptions, said Tyrone Pope, a retired sergeant supervisor for the New York City Police Department. I wouldn't narrow the investigation to just a single theory, said Pope, an assistant professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice. Crump said there were glaring contradictions in the accounts given by the last people to see Wells alive. The people Wells arrived with said he was talking to a young woman, chose to stay behind, and planned to ride back with someone else, officials stated. The young woman says that he went and got back on the boat with the boys, Crump said. The boys say, no, he said he was going to stay with her, and that's a conflict. The family and their supporters have said the notion that Wells chose to stay behind without his cell phone or keys doesn't make sense. Crump also questioned how Wells, who knew how to swim, could have drowned without anyone seeing him struggling. Jackson County Coroner Bruce Lind told CNN the currents can be strong on the barrier islands and there have been drownings many times over the years. Experts have said drowning can be fast, silent, and look different than one might expect. It's very, very easy to drown and have nobody recognize that, said Andrea Zafares, a medical legal death investigator who trains law enforcement on aquatic death and homicide investigations. Zafares said that there are three major questions investigators need to answer when a body is found in or near water. Question, does it make sense the body was found in that water at that time? Question, does the location, position, posture, and state of the decedent and the people who reported the death make sense? Question, does it make sense the victim is dead? Too often, she said, uncovering what really happened when a person dies in these circumstances becomes incredibly challenging because everybody has the opportunity to make assumptions that cause of death is drowning. Though it's not yet clear what happened to Wells, Smith said the circumstances surrounding his death shed a spotlight on the common experience of being the only black person in a predominantly white group. Smith recalled her own experience being one of just two black girls on her high school softball team. She said the dynamic can be not only isolating but dangerous. You can't think about these stories without thinking about the things that our parents taught us, that we have taught our children, she said. Even in the most integrated communities, you can't do what your white friends do. You can't go all of the places they can go without being very vigilant about your safety because it has been true in our lives. The Reverend Al Sharpton has said advocates are not definitely linking Wells' death to racism, but they're not discounting it as a factor yet either. So tell us, don't rush to judgment saying it was racist is fine. But then I'm telling you, don't rush to judgment saying it was not racism because we do not know, Sharpton said. Crump has repeatedly invoked the death of Emmett Till, a black teenager whose 1955 murder in Mississippi helped galvanize the civil rights movement, at news conferences about Wells and suggested that investigators would be handling the case differently if Wells was white and the friends who left the island without him were black. Advocates have long sought to raise awareness of the historical lack of police and media attention to cases of missing people of color. Similar anger and skepticism was raised after Travion Trey Reed, 21, was found hanging from a tree on a university campus in Mississippi in 2025. The state's medical examiner determined Reed's death was a suicide, but the family, also represented by Crump, initiated its own investigation into his death, beginning with an independent autopsy. The Mississippi State Medical Examiner's Office has also come under fire over the 2021 death of Damian Cameron after an altercation with law enforcement, which was ruled undetermined. 3 pathologists who examined the autopsy report told Mississippi Today and the New York Times that his death should have been deemed a homicide. This moment is about heartbreak for this family experiencing this loss, deep suspicion that it's not going to be handled in the way that it ought to because racism will cloud the judicial system as it always does, Smith said. Finally, Smith said that this is the moment.
This next article is headlined, Lab Brings Retro Tech to Students. History professor preserves old devices for hands-on learning. In the only room on the top floor of a building at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, really more a tucked-away attic, the clock has turned backwards several decades. Clunky computers whir, boxes of floppy disks sit on shelves, images on curved screens flicker, and rainforest screensavers chirp. A 1992 copy of PC Magazine features the fastest PCs ever. Running at speeds today would offer less computational power than an electric toothbrush. There are posters and figurines and wires everywhere, and it's all enveloped by bright green walls and overseen by one man who at that moment was blaring Mr. Brightside, the 204 hit by the Killers, through an iPod. Thomas Haig, chair of the history department, runs the university's Retro Lab, one of 4 retro computer labs in the nation. He deemed the space a perfect blend of his identity and made up of his love for history and computer science. It has a British accent, just adds to the vibe. But Haig says the space is far from a museum display of exotic finds. It's a revival of a real experience with computers and video game systems from the 70s, 80s, and 90s and early aughts all working. In the lab, computers sit in chronological order, modeling the stark changes in technology through the decades. I got Microsoft Office right here, said Noah Zach, 2026 graduate, as he ventured across the room. A box of 25 floppy disks sat heavily in Zach's hand as Haig explained the process of dealing with physical software. Dusty and grimy machines shoved in closets, basements, and attics decades ago were given a second life in Haig's lab. Haig started the Retro Lab during the COVID-19 pandemic with just 6 computers. Now he's received so many donations that he keeps the overflow in the basement. Some come from Haig's parents' home in England. Others are sources from eBay or donated by faculty and community members. He said starting his lab blew dust off skills he never thought he'd use again. He can pinpoint every game and software on a crowded shelf without hesitation. He knows every function and idiosyncrasy of the computers. Haig said none could operate without a little maintenance. Thorough cleaning and routine tune-ups keep the machines running. For Haig, it's not about finding niche equipment for a trophy case. Functionality is key. To win precious desk space, the computers have to be working, Haig said. The lab keeps technology's history alive, as the average person typically doesn't stumble across decades-old equipment. Of the existing retro computer labs, the others are at Washington State University, University of Colorado, University of Victoria, and British Columbia. UWM's is the only one operating in the history department. Haig teaches a course on the history of computing based on his book, A New History of Modern Computing. Rather than give students a historical overview difficult to visualize, he pairs the information in the book with experiential learning in the Retro Lab. Haig said the Retro Lab's greatest reward is the human interaction it generates. Says there's something special about seeing people connect with their younger selves when they see something they haven't thought about in decades. Whether it's an Atari 2600, Apple Lisa, Apple Macintosh SE, IBM PC, or something else. The experience of using a computer is an important part of your life, Haig said. When that technology goes obsolete, you lose that piece. The Retro Lab can ignite nostalgia, Haig said. Knowing the little quirks of each machine, he tries to find something to connect people to a memory. In some cases, the experience of these old items is brand new. Zach volunteers in the Retro Lab because it's an outlet for him to appreciate physical media. A self-described old soul, he values putting in more effort to experience something in a certain way, like listening to a vinyl record. He feels most people are divorced from that older way of operating. He sees the wonder and amusement on people's face when they walk into the room. Jack says the best part of college is having professors who are experts in niche topics, which he says especially true of UWM's history department. He took Haig's class last summer, allowing him to dive deeper into his interests. He even learned how to fix several of the computers, helping Haig keep the space running. Zach appreciates using the machines to learn instead of simply reading about them. He says it's the only way to understand how things used to be. Zach says his experience in vintage video games in their authentic form is worth the frustrating trial and error, because it's not the same as effortlessly playing them on a modern web browser. I think it's something pretty profound that people feel nostalgia for things they were not actually present for, he said. Haig operates the Retro Lab on his own and has a long list of projects to take care of in the lab. Oh, I could just spend my entire life here, he said. But for the lab owner, like his old software, retirement is approaching. Haig says, lastly, don't plan to find a successor to run the lab. He says the space would be open for another year at minimum. You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 18 minutes after the hour.
The next article is titled Dating Profile Makeovers, an Antidote for Mansphere. A coach helps men present themselves better on apps. The Miami doctor wasn't supposed to feel this invisible. On paper, he was the type of man dating apps were supposed to reward. He was tall, with a stable, prestigious job, and living in a bustling city. But he never felt truly seen. He struggled to hold conversation with his colleagues. On dating apps, messages stalled out before he and his matches ever made it to a first drink. When he came to Michael Asabuo, a 30-year-old dating coach in Montreal who specializes in confidence transformations for high-performing men, he didn't come with the bitterness you might hear online from men who feel left behind by modern dating. He truly felt defeated, Asabuo recalls. He didn't come to me with, "I hate women," or any of that spiel. He just said, "I just want to do better because I feel like I'm doing something wrong." Asabuo's work is part of a growing trend of men seeking out ways to improve their prospects in the dating world. But unlike some of the controversial routes gaining traction, like dangerous manosphere content or unregulated supplements and injections, Asabuo's approach is more constructive, and it's working. He gained a large online following and has a booming business to show for it. The Manosphere, which is a digital collection of websites, videos, and online communities that promote male supremacy, has become increasingly mainstream. Creators like Andrew Tate, a self-proclaimed misogynist charged with rape and human trafficking, and streamer Sneako, who once said, "A woman's worth is what she looks like, and a man's worth is your masculinity," they have amassed millions of followers across social media platforms, providing a pipeline for men seeking advice about romantic rejection and physical self-esteem to fall into radical misogyny instead. Even now, the popularized term looksmaxing originated in the manosphere. It first emerged on incel message boards in the 2010s and is often associated with claims that most women are attracted to men based on superficial qualities like looks, money, and status. But the term has transcended its toxic roots to also represent wholesome self-improvements, such as bald maxers like Harry James, who offers guidance on self-optimization and embracing baldness to over 250,000 YouTube subscribers. Asabuo's work falls in this realm of men's makeover and confidence transformation trends, where the focus falls on improvement from within rather than the controversial narratives that form in the manosphere. Now this is what the men need: less red pill, more makeovers. A commentator wrote on Asabuo's now viral video of the Miami doctor's transformation. Another commented, "Love that you're promoting helping men grow their confidence without putting down women to do it." Asabuo's first transformation was on himself. It started with personal fitness, turning to weight training to match his physique to the bigger guys on his high school football team. "I was getting ragdolled. I was getting bullied on the field. I was like, oh, it can't be like this for me," he says. At age 16, he gained 25 pounds to become a better version of himself and promptly noticed the rewards. Football became much easier. People were more attracted to him. His self-esteem improved. In 2017, he started working as a personal trainer. His clients would open up about their dating lives, which were often floundering. He couldn't understand why. These clients were already in the best possible shape until they showed him their dating profiles. That's where I saw the gap of like, oh, the person I see in front of me is not the person that is on this profile. Like it's night and day, he recalls. He helped his clients tweak their style and photos, which he said would blow up their dating profile and results. In 2020, he started posting his work online. In tightly edited Instagram reels, the work looks simple. The transformation consists of new clothes, a fresh haircut that complements their natural features, and elevated dating app pictures. But behind the scenes, Asabuo adheres to a strict 5-phase system that also teaches emotional intelligence and conversational skills while aiming to rebuild self-confidence. The antidote to the whole red pill movement for me is just not blaming anyone but yourself, Asabuo says. If we're not happy where we're at, we can do something about it. Asabuo charges $5,000 for his services, guaranteeing men who complete the program over 100 matches on dating apps within 90 days. Most of his clients are high-skilled professionals, he says, such as doctors, lawyers, executives, and co-founders, where their line of work requires them to look very sharp and have a good presentation. Asabuo doesn't pay much attention to what other creators are doing. He says he's heard of the Andrew Tates of the world, but chooses to avoid any online negativity. His goal has always been to help people that want to be helped. I want my guys and myself to be able to provide financially, emotionally, spiritually, physically, he explains. Be greedy in how much you want to provide for your partner because you're giving the best version of yourself, and you would hope that you can get the same back in return. And finally, Asabuo says of himself he is single, but he brings the lessons he teaches at work back to his own dating life. That is, when he can fit in dates between meeting his clients in Montreal or across the world. I would like to have a long-lasting relationship myself and be able to have a family, marriage, all of it. I'm 30 years old, and it's something I'm working on having, he says, so I try to take some time for it.
This next article is titled DA. Man killed by ICE in Texas did not have drugs in van. Lab results contradict FBI's search application. The author is Eduardo Coeres. Baggies of white substance found in the vehicle of a man fatally shot by a federal immigration officer were not drugs, Houston prosecutors say on July 24th, despite the FBI search warrant application that described the contents of the bags as consistent with methamphetamine. The Harris County District Attorney's Office said the lab results of the substance inside Lorenzo Salago Arroyo's white Ford van tested negative for narcotics or illicit drugs. Salago Arroyo, a 52-year-old Mexican father, was killed by a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement officer the morning of July 7th during a traffic stop. The findings contradict the justification the FBI Special Agent David McNeely sealed July 14th application to search the van after seeing baggies with white substance following the shooting. Salago Arroyo's family and co-workers have said that he was on his way to work when ICE fatally shot him. Department of Homeland Security, which includes ICE, said Salago Arroyo was not the intended target of the operation, but he tried to evade arrest and used his vehicle to try to run over an officer. Men in the van who witnessed the encounter have disputed the agency's account, saying Salgado Arroyo never posed a threat as an ICE officer fired inside the vehicle. ICE officers weren't wearing body cameras during the shooting. Ruby Powers, his family's lawyer, has said that the white substance was salt to be mixed with water for electrolytes, keep outdoor workers hydrated in Texas heat. This was all used to discredit Lorenzo and the witnesses. Unfortunately, or to act as a red herring and a distraction, Powers told CNN's Eric Burnett out front on July 24th. Ultimately, it's not a narcotic or controlled substance. Powers said the lab results would be made public July 27th. In announcing the findings, the Harris County DA's office said on social media that it wouldn't comment further on the test results amid the pending investigation. We have notified Salgado Arroyo's family because we felt they had the right to know, the DA's office said in a post. A July 25th ICE statement to USA Today said to reach out to FBI Houston and the U.S. Attorney's Office for a comment on the suspected discovery of illicit narcotics in the van of Lorenzo Salgado. FBI said it didn't have a comment. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Houston said it had no additional information. On July 14th, Federal Magistrate Judge Richard Bennett granted the search warrant the same day McNeely, former Houston police officer, requested to enter the van. The application was listed as sealed, appeared July 15th on a federal case docket. McNeely's application said federal officials were gathering all facts related to the incident, including what might have caused the van to flee. According to the application, McNeely said he arrived at the scene after the shooting and saw small baggies with white crystal-like substance in the middle of the dash and on the passenger floorboard. The application said the packaging and appearance of the controlled substance was consistent with methamphetamine. In his request to search the van, McNeely said evidence of the baggies meant it was probable cause federal crimes had been violated. The League of United Latin American Citizens, a civil rights organization, questioned whether the FBI can fairly and transparently investigate Salgado Arroyo's death. And lastly, only the American public can reach that conclusion based on what we've all been witnessing, Roman Palomares, LULAC's national president and chairman of the board, said in a statement. You're listening to a reading of articles from USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 30 minutes after the hour. That means we move to the money section of USA Today. And let's cue up an article from that section.
The first article is, oh dear, trouble with the computer again.
I have one up here,
Okay.
Dave. Borrowers in trouble. Here's what they need to do to limit damage. Student loan defaults spike. The author is Medora Lee. Student loan borrowers are in trouble, data show. Record number of loans are in default, according to an Associated Press analysis last week. Defaults have grown by 4.2 million to an all-time high of 9.52 million since June of last year, when borrowers were allowed again to default on loans, according to data from the Office of Federal Student Aid. During the pandemic, the government paused student loan payments, prevented loans from entering default. Borrowers don't act quickly, defaults could haunt them for years, experts say. A federal student loan default can result in wage garnishment, tax refund garnishment, and have negative impact on credit for years to come, said Stacy McFeetries, Senior Director of Educational Finance at Brighton Horizons, provider of educational advisory services to organizations and families. The Trump administration has delayed refund and wage garnishment, but they're expecting to return. Borrowers in default need either to make repayments or enter rehabilitation. McFeetries said the first step is to open your mail. Do not ignore any notices regarding student loans, she said. Should respond to any correspondence they have from loan servicers, collection agencies, or the Department of Education to begin the process, she said. When you respond, explain your situation fully, discuss your options. Department of Education's federal student aid site said, if you make repayment arrangements soon enough after your loan has gone into default, you may be able to solve the default quickly. Options include paying off the student loans in full, which likely isn't a choice for most. Other options are rehabilitating or consolidating the loans. Loan rehabilitation takes several months to complete, but you can apply for loan consolidation. However, if you consolidate a defaulted loan, the record of the default as well as late payments reported before the loan went into default will remain in your credit history for 7 years from when they were first reported. That contrasts with rehabilitation. There are also other differences between the two programs, and borrowers should check the FSA site and speak to their loan servicers to understand them before making a decision. Credit scores will drop. Payment history is the single biggest factor in a FICO score. So for anyone behind on student loans, that's the first thing to address, said Tommy Lee, Senior Director at credit scoring company FICO. The national average FICO score fell to 714 in October last year from 716 in January of 25, partly because of record student loan delinquencies, he said. Credit scores are important because lenders use them to decide whether to approve loans and credit cards and determine interest rates and credit limits. What happens going forward will depend on how quickly those with student loan delinquencies are able to get back on track with their payments and to avoid as much as possible those missed payments spreading to other credit obligations, Lee said. For those whose credit scores have fallen, the good news is that a low score today is not permanent, Lee said. FICO scores are designed to reflect recent behavior, so getting current on missing payments and then staying current is the most direct path to recovery. For borrowers who are struggling but haven't seen a credit score decline yet, contact a loan servicer before missing a payment, not after, he said. Deferment and income-driven repayment options can help protect a score before any damage occurs. Earlier in July, federal student loans saw the most sweeping overhauls in decades. Changes included new borrowers facing loan caps, elimination of Grad Plus loans, and only 2 repayment options. Many old borrowers had to consolidate loans, choose new repayment plans, or risk being involuntarily placed in one that may not fit their budget, loan experts said. Some borrowers who fell into default may have been confused about all the student loan changes the past couple of years. We hear often from borrowers that they have been confused about what they need to do to resume payment after the CARES Act payment pause, loan service changes, and many legal challenges facing federal student loans, McFeetry said. Many borrowers did not realize they were not still in a SAVE, that's a Save on Valuable Education, administrative or other forbearance, while student loan challenges were being resolved. Rising costs and economic pressures cause other borrowers to prioritize other expenses, while still more may have unaffordable monthly payments, she said. But instead of not paying, borrowers need to take the time to look at their new plans and payment options. And lastly, the change to federal student loan repayment that took effect on July 1st are meant to simplify the repayment process by reducing the number of repayment plans over time, which should reduce borrower confusion, McFeetry said. The administration has also offered borrowers in repayment a 1% interest rate reduction for direct debit, hoping to encourage borrowers to enter repayment with an automatic debit, which will ensure timely replacement.
The next article is also in the money section. It is titled, "Many Regret Retiring Too Early." Most wish they had saved more in advance. The article is by Daniel DeVise. Americans are retiring sooner than they expect, and most retirees wish they had done a better job saving. Those are the conclusions of a new report from the TIAA Institute, a research arm of the retirement services provider. The findings are probably related, TIAA leaders say. Workers who retire early have less time to save, and their savings must cover a longer retirement. Roughly 3/4 of retirees surveyed said they regret not saving earlier in their lives. Nearly 3/4 said they wish they had saved more. People are expressing regret, said Suri Kaluri, head of the TIAA Institute. That's a powerful emotion. We can take that emotion and apply it to people who have not left the workforce. The new report, Bridging the Gaps in Retirement Expectations, joins a larger body of research which shows American workers tend to retire before they had planned and before they are ready. In the TIAA Institute survey released on July 22nd, the average retiree said they had retired at age 57. Of those retirees, 52% said they retired earlier than expected, while only 6% said they had retired later than planned. The average working American in the survey, by contrast, said they expected to retire 5 years later at 62. The survey reached 1,591 adults aged 22 to 75. Earlier studies have consistently found that American workers retire before they planned. Two annual surveys given by the Employee Benefit Research Institute and the Transamerica Center for Retirement Studies both show that Americans workers tend to retire around age 62. Most workers don't plan to retire that early. According to the latest EBRI survey, the average worker expects to retire at 65. According to Transamerica, 39% of workers plan to retire after 70, if at all. Okay, 1 second here. Workers often map out retirement plans around 2 or 3 milestone ages. One is 65, when Medicare becomes available. Another is 62, when most retirees become eligible for Social Security. A third is 67, which Social Security regards as full retirement age for most workers. In the end, however, most workers don't get to choose when they retire. Retirement often hits suddenly and unexpectedly via a corporate layoff or a household health setback. It could be a health incident, it could be caregiving, it could be displacement, it could be AI, Kalluri said. Retiring early and unexpectedly can have a profound impact on a retirement plan. Let's say a worker plans to save $500,000 to retire at 65 and to use the savings in Social Security to fund a 20-year retirement. Now let's say that worker gets laid off at 60 and can't find another job. That means they have 5 years fewer to save for retirement, and those savings must fund 5 more years of retirement. On top of those setbacks, the early retiree isn't eligible for Social Security or Medicare. One takeaway from the survey, Kalluri said, is that workers need to plan for a retirement that can come sooner than they think. Workers can plan to retire at 65, he said, but they should save enough to cover a retirement that begins earlier and lasts longer. Given this data, I would say, let's do 3 scenarios, he said. Let's do 57, 62, and 65. Workplace retirement savings plans are more important than ever in meeting those goals, the TIA Institute report says. In the survey, 70% of workers said they had access to 401k plans, and 85% of those workers said they were enrolled. 3/5 of workplace retirement savers said they had been automatically enrolled. Auto-enrollment is viewed as key to the future success of retirement saving because that feature tends to raise saving rates. Starting in 2025, most new 401k plans had to automatically enroll employees rather than leave the decision to them. Here are some tips for workers to boost retirement savings. Number 1, consider setting aside as much as you can in tax-favored retirement accounts. The 401k already has high contribution limits, $24,500 in 2026. If you're near retirement, consider pushing your savings as close to the maximum as you can afford. Americans 50 and older can save even more with catch-up contributions, which push the annual 401k limit to $32,500. A smaller subset of savers in the 60 to 63 range can get even higher catch-up limit of $35,750. Individual retirement account contribution limits are lower, $7,500 or $8,600 for those 50 and older. Next suggestion, keep working if you can. Postpone retirement, even by a year or two, can be a powerful tool for building retirement savings. A Stanford University study found that delaying retirement by just 3 to 6 months has the same impact on retirement savings is raising your 401k contribution rate by a full percentage point for 30 years. Let's say you put off retirement for a year. In that year, you can max out retirement savings, potentially adding tens of thousands of dollars to your account. And you won't be drawing down your savings, which means they'll last longer once you do retire. And finally, build up your cash savings. The closer your retirement date, the more likely you will soon need to tap your savings for living expenses. Ideally, you should have some of these savings in cash. A wise goal, retirement experts say, is to amass at least a year's worth of living expenses in cash or cash equivalent accounts, such as high-yield savings or money market funds.
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today and the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 45 minutes after the hour. Our next article is titled Pay Zero Federal Tax with Tax Gain Harvesting Plan. Strategy can benefit you during lean income years. The author is Medora Lee. Tax loss harvesting is a popular way many Americans lower their taxes each year, but meets its less popular but powerful sibling, tax gain harvesting. Tax gain harvesting is strategically selling assets that have increased in value to minimize future taxes. It's the opposite of tax loss harvesting, which is selling underwater assets to apply losses against capital gains or up to $3,000 of ordinary income each year. Using tax gain harvesting during low-income years could allow you not only to escape tax on those gains, but to permanently lower taxes you might have to pay later on the same investment if you buy it back and it appreciates further, experts say. Tax gain harvesting isn't subject to the wash sale rule that tax loss harvesting is, that prevents you from immediately buying back the same investment. The strategy is compelling, especially in lower income years if you lose a job or in early retirement bridge years before Social Security kicks in and before RMDs, that's required minimum distributions. See Emily Shacklett, certified because the computer's confusing here. Let's move on to the next section. If they buy back the fund the same day, their cost basis purchaser price resets from $50,000 to $126,400, which helps them lower taxable appreciation later. Their income also stays below the level that would reduce the temporary senior deduction or trigger Medicare surcharges. But state income tax may still apply depending on where they live. The newer senior deduction phases out when modified adjusted gross income, or MAGI, exceeds $75,000 for single filers or $150,000 for joint filers. The IRS said Medicare surcharges begin when individuals' MAGI reaches $109,000 and $218,000 for joint filers, according to the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services. For all these reasons, tax gain harvesting is the reverse of tax loss harvesting, and for many retirees, it's the more valuable of the two. The gain tax harvesting is best when income is low or zero, making children ideal for this strategy, according to investment platform Wealthfront. Wealthfront launched custodial accounts in June that automatically sell appreciated investments annually to realize gains while the child is in a low or zero federal tax bracket, then buy replacement exchange traded funds to maintain the portfolio's target risk and returns. The subsequent higher purchase price increases the investment's cost basis, which reduces the amount of realized gain when the investment is sold later. This is definitely an interesting concept. We've employed it with some clients with custodial accounts, but not on autopilot because of worries around the kiddie tax, Shacklett said. The Kiddie tax is an IRS rule that taxes a child's unearned income, such as interest, dividends, and capital gains, beyond a certain threshold at their parents' marginal tax rate rather than the child's lower rate. It's meant to prevent shuffling money to kids to avoid higher tax rates. To counter that, Weatherfront only realized up to $1,350 in tax-free growth each year, so no federal tax is due and no return is required. A child needs to file a tax return if annual unearned income, such as interest, dividends, and capital gains, reaches $1,350, because amounts above that are taxed at the child's lower marginal tax rate. Amounts above $2,700 are taxed at the parent's marginal rate. It's not a bad idea, but keep your hand on the pulse of it, Shacklett said. Tax gain harvesters must consider state taxes, experts say. Most state tax capital gains with a range ranging from 0 to more than 13%. California taxes capital gains at the same rate as income. So basically, the zero tax strategy works for federal purposes due to the zero rate, and in states with no income tax or exempts capital gains, said Richard Pond, a certified public accountant. Wealthfront's automated tax gain harvesting in its custodial accounts is set to avoid triggering estate tax filing requirements, but it's important to note state and local tax laws vary significantly and may impose different or additional requirements beyond federal rules. So it's always wise to consult with a tax professional regarding the specific tax implications for your situation.
The next article is also from the Money section. It is titled Popular Soup Brand Recalls Over 180,000 Cans. Amy's Kitchen cites an abundance of caution. The article is submitted by Fernando Cervantes. Amy's Kitchen is recalling more than 180,000 cans of soup sold in more than 20 states and parts of Canada because of a defect that could increase the risk of spoilage. In a statement to USA Today, Amy's Kitchen said the voluntary recall affects 15,530 cases. A case contains 12 cans of the company's organic lentil soup, light in sodium. In the same statement, the company said the recall was done out of an abundance of caution to ensure the high quality of its products. It said no other products are involved. According to U.S. Food and Drug Administration report posted on July 14th, the recall began on June 22nd. According to the same enforcement report, the soup was sold in Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Georgia, Iowa, Idaho, Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, Maine, Missouri, North Carolina, New Hampshire, New Jersey, Nevada, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, South Dakota, Tennessee, Texas, Virginia, Washington, and Wisconsin. The soups have a best by date of April 2027, with the lot number being 60 D as in David 0924. The soup recall comes day after the FDA posted another voluntary recall of more than 730,000 Pillsbury rolls sold to Walmart because they could contain pieces of glass. The recall posted July 13th said General Mills on June 19th recalled 3,800 cases of Pillsbury bread rolls, hard roll dough, and 1,260 cases of Pillsbury bread rolls, Kaiser roll dough. The rolls may contain potential foreign material, that is to say glass, the notice read. The dough sold to Walmart finally, which makes the rolls to sell in its bakeries, was recalled in 19 states where it was distributed. Any baked rolls were removed from bakery shelves, General Mills said.
Our last article for this hour is titled New Sweet Treat Concepts on the Horizon. The author is Celine Martin, co-founder of award-winning dessert shop Nothing Bundt Cakes, has a new project in the works, this time focusing on milkshakes, which come in 15 flavors with real fruit and cake. Nothing Bundt Cakes co-founder Dana Tripp is no longer affiliated with the cake shop, but is now launching Shook Cakery with son Sean, as well as Jessica Spencer, who previously worked for the bakery chain. The menu consists of shakes made of ice cream, fruit, in-house cake flavors like brown sugar, chocolate, pink, and vanilla, and the company's signature whipped topping. So where are they opening? They'll be in Nevada. There's several places in Nevada. This time the locations are set to be open each day from 11 to 10. There's no information on an expansion yet. You're listening to a reading of articles from USA Today for the 27th day of July on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are Tom Scanlon and
David Hayes.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from USA Today. Your readers remain Tom Scanlon and
David Hayes.
As always, we turn to the sports section of USA Today for the second hour, and our first article is about NBA basketball. LeBron joins the 76ers for all of the right reasons. This first part's where I tell you that now that LeBron James has made his decision to sign with the Philadelphia 76ers, it's time for him to deliver. Second bit's where I acknowledge that we hold him to an unreasonable standard. Cruising social media in the moments after James surprised the NBA world July 24th and announced he'd be joining his fourth different team, prevailing sentiment was that a failure to deliver a championship in Philadelphia would derail James' legacy. While James' addition does indeed make the Sixers a super team, some pragmatism is in order. This is not a player in his prime. This is one who will turn 42 years old 7 weeks into the regular season. This is not a max player, but one who will sign a 2-year, $8 million deal on the veteran minimum exception. This is not the 45-point LeBron who silenced the TD Gardens in Game 6 2012 Eastern Conference Finals in Boston as his team was facing elimination. This is a veteran who, in defiance of his age, remains relevant and productive. Our expectations of what he can be in his early 40s should reflect all that kind, because LeBron James at this point in his career is not a number 1 or number 2 option. He's a complementary player. He's someone who does many things well, most of all on ball creation and ball distribution. So if the 76ers fail to win an NBA championship during James' tenure there, should not be weighted as some sprawling indictment on James as a player. I thought it was done when the season ended, James wrote Friday. I wasn't ready to announce it, and I knew I needed some time to really decide. But I was pretty sure I played my last game. I was honest at the last press conference when I said I needed to look at myself and decide if I still love this game. I still truly love this game, and I have more to give. Paired alongside Therese Maxey, Jaylen Brown, and Joel Embiid, James will need to carve out his role and will likely have to defer. To make it work, he'll have to sacrifice his usage rate. This will be new for him. But what bears repeating is James is single-handedly rewriting the standard of production for someone his age. Let's take a look for a moment at the time another goated icon, Michael Jordan, signed with a new team in the twilight of his career. After 3 seasons away from the NBA, his second of 3 career retirements, Jordan signed with the Washington Wizards in 2001, played 2 seasons there. Washington posted a pair of 37-45 seasons with Jordan, who was 38 when he made his Wizards debut, nearly 4 years younger than James will be when he launches his Sixers tenure. Jordan did earn a pair of All-Star honors in Washington, and he did elevate a team that had won just 19 games the season prior to his arrival. Yet the Wizards couldn't even crack the postseason with Jordan. Granted, those Washington days were nowhere near as talented as James' Philadelphia outfit will be, but Jordan's lack of postseason success in Washington did nothing to mar his legacy. For whatever reason, James tends to be judged more harshly. Much of this is due to the impossible constraints we place on him and others while debating legacy. We tend to prefer tidy, conventional narratives. Players remain with one team their entire career. Players who fit in easily defined roles. Players who take pay cuts for the good of the team. James could become the first player in NBA history to win championships with 4 franchises, be yet another clear marker of his longevity, excellence, and adaptability. James sacrificed the neater legacy fits, the Cavaliers and Heat, is taking on a larger risk by joining a new team. Ultimately, these are the very traits, sacrifice, hard work, and the pursuit of greatness, that we all love to celebrate in sport. Why should James, chasing it at 41-year-old, be any different? And lastly, this is my decision, he said. I'm not going for money. I'm not going for family. What am I really playing for at this point? I still want to sacrifice. I want to work. I still want to grind. I still want to compete and win, and to have a chance at the feeling of winning another championship.
The next article is also from the sports section. It is titled, Fame Finds MVP Survivor Jeff Kent Again. The article is by Bob Nightingale. Byline is Cooperstown, New York. The trio comes from Curaçao, Puerto Rico, and California. They played center field and second base. They played for 18 different teams, with 2 of them teammates for the LA Dodgers. Now, here they are together, Andruw Jones, Carlos Beltran, and Jeff Kent, who were immortalized on July 22nd into the Baseball Hall of Fame. Most arrived in Cooperstown already, with Wade Boggs stealing the show Thursday afternoon by kneeling down and officially proposing to Debbie Boggs at the Otesaga Hotel 50 years after already being married. It turns out Wade Boggs never officially proposed to Debbie 50 years ago, simply asking her father's permission to marry her. This time, he officially asked Debbie, with Eddie Murray stopping by and witnessing it. I said yes, she said. While there were no planned marriage proposals for Sunday, the stage was set. Jones, the first player from Curaçao to be elected to the Hall of Fame, will be the last player from Atlanta's golden era to be immortalized into Cooperstown, joining Greg Maddux, Tom Glavine, John Smoltz, Chipper Jones, and Fred McGriff, along with the manager Bobby Cox and general manager John Schuerholz. Beltran will be the only third Hall of Famer representing the Mets, joining Tom Seaver and Mike Piazza. And Kent will be the warm-up act to next summer when the San Francisco Giants are expected to take over the Village. Former Giants managers Dusty Baker and Bruce Bochy are expected to be shoo-ins in the contemporary era Hall of Fame ballot, and catcher Busty Posey should be easily elected to the Baseball Writers Association of America ballot. Baker and his wife Melissa arrived Thursday evening to celebrate Kent's induction. Kent says he can't wait to be on hand for Baker's induction, who he planned to thank in his speech. While this Hall of Fame trio had a unique skill set, with Jones winning 10 Gold Gloves in center field, Kent hitting the most homers, 377, by a second baseman in history, and Beltran the only switch hitter to hit 400 homers and steal 300 bases in his career. One man accomplished a feat never done by a Hall of Famer in baseball history. Kent appeared for 22 days on the popular TV show Survivor in 2012. The show, which has run 50 seasons, puts a group of people in an isolated location where they provide food, fire, and shelter for themselves. In Kent's series, he was in the Philippines. I was a fan from the get-go, Kent said, because it's kind of like the top of the food chain wins the game. You're stuck pretty much naked and afraid on an island. Yes, and Kent remembers the jokes that he was always on his own island. But as a kid growing up, loving motocross, he embraced adventure and was proud to be called a daredevil. I wanted to be on the show, Kent said. When I heard that there was somebody looking for potential athletes, I had made a video and gave it to them, and they liked my video. I went through the whole process like everybody else to be on the show. Literally, you could say that I don't mind just being myself and trying to figure out how to survive. I guess it's an internal nature that I had through sports, through life, of the fight, the grind of being able to survive and still be good at what you do. Which for the island itself, it was beating everybody in challenges and then outlying each other so you can't get voted off. Kent finished 10th and wasn't the last survivor, didn't win the $1 million prize, but still had the time of his life. Let me tell you, there's nothing fake about that show, he says. They don't have stickers in the corner. You're not cheating. There are no toilets, no toilet paper. I mean, you're pooping in the water or pooping in the woods and wiping your rear end with leaves or not wiping at all. Everything about it was kind of gross when you're laying next to somebody who stinks from getting wet all day long. But it was the social game that was the struggle for me. Kent was never the warm and fuzzy type throughout his baseball career, once even fighting with teammate Barry Bonds on the bench during a game against the San Diego Padres in 2002, so his personality wasn't going to suddenly change just because he was on TV. I just wanted to know if I could survive on an island and suffer physically, Kent said, but when I got there, I didn't know how much of a social challenge it was. It was a major social challenge, and that one was a struggle for me because you're lying all day long. I lied to people and told them I was 10 years younger, that I only had 2 kids, not 4. I told them I was a motorcycle salesman at a motorcycle dealership my dad owned. Trying to keep track of all those lies was freaking mind-blowing. In real life, Kent also was caught in a lie when he broke his wrist in spring training in 2002, saying he fell off the top of his truck while washing it. It turns out he fell off his motorcycle while popping wheelies on the streets of Scottsdale, Arizona. Now nearly a quarter century later, and perhaps for the first time, Kent is showing a sentimental and emotional side that was hidden throughout his baseball career. He cried when he got the news he was elected. He cried during his press conference with reporters. He even choked up Thursday night when Hall of Famer Reggie Jackson walked over to him in the lobby of the Oda Saga, put his arm around him, and welcomed him to the Hall of Fame family, in disbelief that it took so long for him to be elected after failing to get more than 46.5% of the vote by baseball writers during his 10 years on the ballot. He was the only player elected this year by the Contemporary Baseball Era Committee, receiving 14 of the 16 ballots, while Bonds, who has hit the most homers in history, received fewer than 5 votes and is ineligible to appear again for 6 years. I had painted a picture that I accepted, which was that it's probably just not going to happen, Kent said. I'm okay with it. You know, it's not going to make my life much better anyway, so I just deal with it. It turns out he was lying to himself because once he got the call, he burst into tears and hasn't stopped crying. It's a bigger emotional deal than I ever thought it was going to be, he said. I still tear up about talking about it, and I've tried to figure out why. Is it because of the game? Is it because I finally got in? Is it because I wasn't there and now I am in? Why are my emotions so attached to this? I don't know why. Well, he may find out Sunday when he delivered his speech. He planned to talk about how his first true love was motocross racing, why he still has that pickup truck from 1986 that he rebuilt 6 times, the people who influence his career, and just what it means to be in the company of the greatest baseball players to walk the face of the earth. And finally, in my personal life, extended family, my friends, church friends, they know I'm a baseball player, Ken said. They watch me on TV. They may go to a game or 2, but none of them have ever been intimately involved in baseball functions. And this is the biggest baseball function. I'll probably never shed a tear or 2. This is going to be hard. But worry? Nah. After all, he's a survivor. You are listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Reading Service. The time is 1:14.
Our next article is titled Change of Heart. In forthcoming biography of trans tennis player Renee Richards, the author says Renee has done a 180 since her own playing days. The author is Danielle Lerner. The debate over transgender athletes' participation in sports reached tennis last week when the Women's Tennis Association changed his eligibility policy to require genetic sex testing for all players. In professional tennis history, there's only been one openly transgender player, Renee Richards. Richards became the first out trans professional athlete in the United States when she successfully sued for her right to compete as a woman in 1977 U.S. Open. Richards played professional tennis for 5 years and then returned to her ophthalmology practice, which she retired from a few years ago. And yet, as the battle over transgender athletic rights grabs the political and cultural spotlight, Richard's story is often forgotten, said Julie Kliegman, the author of a forthcoming biography titled Finding Renee Richards, the groundbreaking story of tennis's trans pioneer. She's been mostly watching it from the sidelines, which is really interesting because she has this experience that basically no one else has. Kliegman said, part of her wants it that way, but also, I think, can be sort of frustrating because she has this wealth of knowledge and experience and isn't always included in these conversations or even remembered as far as her legacy goes. Richards, now age 91, surgically transitioned in 1975. She was publicly outed. The WTA, the United States Tennis Association, and the United States Open Committee began requiring female competitors to verify their sex with a chromosomal test called the Body test. Richards refused to take the test before the 1976 U.S. Open, wasn't allowed to play, and sued. Federal judge granted Richards an injunction and allowed her to play in the 1977 U.S. Open. Richards lost in the first round of the singles draw, but made it to the doubles final with partner Betty Ann Stewart. That remained the highest achievement of her career, which peaked at a ranking of number 20 on the singles tour. She was good, but she wasn't the dominant force who was beating Chrissy Everett and Billie Jean King and Martina Navratilova with any regularity, Kliegman said. I mean, she was just a player on tour. Kliegman said King's leadership helped Richard accepted in tennis after the ruling. While there was some backlash, a handful of players wore T-shirts protesting her inclusion. One of Richards' opponents was pulled from a match by her coach. Most players on tour had no problems with Richards. Her acceptance on tour ended up being pretty wildly uncontroversial after the lawsuit victory. And Kliegman said, I think that bad actors who are leading these conversations now about transgender athletes' eligibility may not want to acknowledge that there was a time when this was relatively uncontroversial. Kliegman's book, which releases August 18th, explores Richards' life before and after her transition. Richards sat for multiple interviews for the book, but had no say in its contents. The book is a biography of her to a certain extent. It's also about my relationship to her as non-binary and trans person myself, Kliegman said. And I think it also connects with everything this current political climate we're in, where trans athletes are under attack. As President Donald Trump and Republican lawmakers push to restrict transgender participation in U.S. athletics, sports organizations around the globe are reversing previously inclusive policies. The International Olympic Committee announced in March that female athletes will be required to take a SPRY gene test to determine their eligibility for the 2028 Olympic Games in Los Angeles, reviving a policy it tried and abandoned in 1999 over concerns about inaccuracies and costs. The WTA plans to use the same SRY gene test to screen tennis players, despite critics citing evidence that such testing can harm intersex and cisgender women. On June 30th, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that states can ban transgender women and girls from competing on female sports teams. This month, WNBA player Sophie Cunningham made headlines when she doesn't believe transgender people should be allowed in women's sports. Perhaps surprisingly, that's an opinion Richard shares. Renee has done a 180 since her own playing days, Kliegman said. She no longer believes that trans women and girls, for the most part, should participate in women's and girls' sports alongside cisgender athletes. Exception she carves out is for girls who have not undergone male puberty, so to speak. Richards declined USA Today's request for an interview. After Richards retired from playing, she coached Navratilova to 2 Wimbledon titles in 1982 and 83. Navratilova is now fiercely vocal about being trans people out of sports. According to Kliegman, Richards and Navratilova maintain an ongoing friendship, even though Martina uses language that Renee would not about biological males, people cheating in sports. And lastly, since Richards, there hasn't been another openly transgender player in professional tennis. In fact, hasn't stopped the WTA from reinstating testing similar to the kind Richards fought against decades ago. Certainly rhymes with everything that's happened 50 years ago, which is kind of wild to think about, Kliegman said. Renee is a complex figure with nuanced views on these subjects, and I think we'd all be better off if we remembered her story.
The next article is also from the sports section, and it is titled Formula One Racing. Norris wins the Hungary Grand Prix, and it's McLaren's first win in 2026. The article is written by Alan Baldwin. Byline is Budapest, Hungary. Formula One champion Lando Norris won the Hungarian Grand Prix for McLaren's first victory of the season on July 25th, while Mercedes' Kimi Antonelli extended his overall lead to 50 points. Red Bull's Max Verstappen was second, with Antonelli third after a likely McLaren 1-2 evaporated when Oscar Piastri pulled over with a mechanical failure 14 laps from the end of the Hungaroring. Ferrari's Lewis Hamilton, Antonelli's closest title rival, finished fourth on track but dropped to fifth behind teammate Charles Leclerc after a 5-second post-race penalty for speeding in the pit lane. My pace today was probably some of the best pace I've ever had, said Norris. The car was beautiful to drive, and I felt very confident. So a great race. I'm just happy to be back and see the number one again. Mercedes' George Russell finished seventh after a disastrous start that dropped him to 19th and remained third in the overall standings, but 59 points behind his 19-year-old Italian teammate. The win from pole position was Norris' 12th victory and second in a row in Hungary, but it could have been Piastri's day after the Australian took the lead on the opening lap from third place on the starting grid. His chances then took a literal blow when a collision with backmarker Carlos Sainz Williams delayed him enough to allow Norris, who had stayed out longer before a second change of tires, to pit and come out ahead. Piastri's retirement triggered a virtual safety car with Norris and Ferrari drivers pitting while Verstappen and Antonelli stayed out. I didn't expect to be on the podium today, but we worked hard for it, said Verstappen, who lost out to Hamilton after the first pit stop, but took the place back with a bold overtake a lap later. I saw the opportunity. It was my only one. I just went for it. We're good on the brakes, so that helped, but was also under control, said the four-time world champion. And finally, Antonelli had started seventh after a three-place grid penalty, but completed a day of damage limitation better than might have been expected. It was really hard to overtake, so we had to do something with strategy, said the Italian. Initially, we tried to go for the one stop, but then they told me the tire was too much on the limit, so we stopped. With the virtual safety car, the two Ferraris boxed. I knew it would be very hard because I was on hards and they were on softs, but luckily we were able to keep them behind.
This next article is a professional baseball article. Nationals rate higher after early Meade trade. Authors Christy Ackert. Boston Red Sox are sending left-handed pitcher Conley Early to the Washington Nationals for infielder Curtis Meade in a rare swap of major leaguers by two teams with playoff aspirations. The National and Red Sox announced the trade the morning of July 25th. First glance, it seems Boston got robbed. 24-year-old starter with 5 years of control, traded for a 25-year-old hitter having the first good season of his career. Looks lopsided on the surface. In reality, this is a swap of two cheap players, both under club control, with each team getting something it hasn't been able to find internally. Boston desperately needed the bat. Washington needs arms. Here's how each side did 9 days out from the August 3rd MLB trade deadline. And the Red Sox rated a -B in this trade. Entering play, Boston was 53-50 and held the second American League wild card. Scott Nair with a half a lineup. Roman Anthony has not played since May 4th. He tore ligaments and a tendon in his right ring finger, and 2 days ago he's still not swung a bat. Trevor Story, Marcielo Mayer, and Tristan Casas are on the injured list too. Red Sox ranked 28th in the majors in home runs. Chief Baseball Officer Craig Breslow has said the deadline is complicated because he does not want to trade for a job an injured player is about to take back. Meade answers that. The right-handed bat hits .256 with a .351 on-base percentage and a .505 slugging percentage. He had no home runs in 41 games with the White Sox last season. He has 17 this year. He plays third and first, so Boston can DH him now and move him around later. He's also not going anywhere. Meade does not reach an arbitration until after the 2027 season. It's not a rental if the Red Sox want to hang on to him. There's a red flag that Meade's exit velocity does not seem to support a .505 slugging percentage. He hit .238 in 152 games across part of 3 seasons with Tampa Bay and the White Sox before this year. He's been good since March, but never this good before in his career. However, his hard hit rate and barrel percentage both above average this season, and his .458 expected slugging percentage still puts him in the 77th percentile among MLB hitters. In the Nationals rating, A-. Early was 7-5 with a 3.44 ERA and 17 starts, and 9-12 in a third innings before he left his June 30th start with elbow inflammation. His pitching in rotation already without Garrett Crockett, Ranger Suarez, Johan Oviedo. Boston just traded a starter it may want back in September. National General Manager Paul Tobioni spent a decade with the Red Sox. He ran the draft that took Conley Early. Tobioni is buying a pitcher with an elbow question, and he has Boston's own scouting file in his head. Early's 24 and controllable for 5 more seasons beyond this one and would not reach arbitration till the 28-29 offseason at the earliest. Washington's 53-52 and is third in the National League East. Meade's cheap, productive, and controlled through 2030. It was not a salary dump. It was not selling high on a hot streak. Tobioni clearly wanted Early and knew what he was getting for the future. And lastly, Dr. Kenneth Meister delivered a second opinion on Early's elbow this month, found nothing structurally wrong. He got back on the mound this week for a light session.
The next article is also from the sports section. The topic is golf. The title of the article is Jenny Shim captures her first win in 10 years at the Scottish Open. The article is submitted by the Field Level Media, apparently a conglomerate. Jenny Shim recorded her first win on the LPGA Tour in 10 years on the 26th of July by securing a two-stroke victory at the Women's Scottish Open in North Ayrshire. Shin entered the final round with a 5-stroke lead and needed it. She overcame 5 bogeys to finish at 3 over par 75 on Sunday at Dundonald Links and finished at 9 under 279 for the tournament. The 33-year-old South Korean's last win on the tour was her first one in 2016 at the now-defunct Volunteers of America Texas Shootout. Yeah, my first one didn't really feel like a win at the time. I didn't feel like I deserved it, said Shin, who was still wet after being doused with water during the post-round celebration. But this one definitely feels a lot different. This one feels like I earned it. I worked hard for it. I started working with my putting coach 4 years ago, and he asked me what my goal was. I said I needed to win before I retire. So I had been wanting it so badly in the last 4 years. I'm very, very excited. The last LPGA Tour player to go 10 or more years between official victories was Vicky Fergan, who went 12 years and 3 months between wins at the 1984 S&H Golf Classic and the 1996 Michelob Light Heartland Classic. Shin carded bogeys on holes number 6 through 8 before stopping her skid with birdies on holes number 10 and 12. She limped down the home stretch with bogeys on number 16 and 18. I feel like I've done everything wrong, just wasn't hitting it like it was the last 3 days and was hitting it into bunkers, bushes, and it wasn't fun, Shin said. With the 3 bogeys in a row, I thought, oh boy, I don't know where this is going to go. But yeah, I hung in there, and so I'm quite proud of myself, very happy. And finally, a Lim Kim recorded a 68 on Sunday to ascend into second place at 7 under, 2 strokes ahead of Thailand's Paji Anakurum at 74. Kim of South Korea answered a bogey on the second hole with a birdie on the third. She rattled off 4 straight birdies on numbers 9 through 12. Germany's Esther Heinzlet shot at 73. She finished in 4th place at 4 under for the tournament. You are listening to a reading of today's USA Today and the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 1:32.
This means we turn to the life section of USA Today, and our first article is a movie review. Circe Roll in Odyssey, A Rebirth for Morton is the title. Patrick Ryan is the author. Spoiler alert, we're discussing important details about the plot of the Odyssey in theaters now. Stop reading if you haven't seen it yet and don't want to know what happens. Samantha Morton has always loved horror. Growing up, in the English actress savored The Hills Have Eyes and An American Werewolf in London, and delighted in the eerie puppets of Jim Henson, The Dark Crystal. I watch The Exorcist many times a year. I find it extraordinary, Morton, age 49, says. Sometimes the things that seem so innocent are actually the most terrifying, both in life and cinema. That's certainly an apropos way of describing her witchy new role in The Odyssey, Christopher Nolan's blockbuster retelling of Homer's epic poem. After landing on the verdant island of Aea, long-lost King Odysseus, played by Matt Damon, goes off to hunt for food while his famished crewmates stumble upon the house of an unassuming farmer named Circe, played by Morton. But when she offers them stew, the ravenous men alarmingly can't stop eating it. Slowly, Circe begins to massage and mold Odysseus' crew into literal pigs. It's quite easily the most unsettling scene of Nolan's career, but one that Morton infuses with aching pathos. I didn't turn your men into anything, Circe tells a mystified Odysseus upon discovering the swine. Look at them. This is who they are. They've raped and pillaged across the world for you, and you think that's against their nature? For nearly 3 millennia, readers of Homer's Odyssey have described Circe as an enchantress, a nymph, a goddess, and a trickster. But Martin sees her more as every woman, merely wanting to protect herself from the unchecked desires and violence of men. Christopher manages to condense her down to something that was so unbelievably pure, Morton said. I could recognize my mother, my sister, my daughter, my female friends. She felt a bit like, for want of a better word, the girl next door. We underestimate normal people. Morton's worked as an actor for the last 35 years, starring in Minority Report and AMC's The Walking Dead, and earned 2 Oscar nominations for Sweet and Low Down and In America. She's rarely been offered projects on the scale of the Odyssey, let alone with Hollywood giants such as Nolan. I got a phone call saying that Sir Christopher Nolan wanted to meet. And I actually wept, Morton recalled. I'm very lucky. I had the same team since I was 19. My agents work incredibly hard to try to tell people about me because I do a lot of independent cinema. They work tirelessly to try to get me in a room with some of these heavy hitters, and it doesn't always happen. Morton says she's not one to psychoanalyze her characters, and she opted not to research what Homer scholars have written about Circe through the years. Said she wanted to feel out the character in the moment. She came largely to her hypnotic movements. Here she kneads the men's faces like a potter, and pulls deep from their throats as if she's helping to birth a calf. With Circe, I feel that the location where we were filming had huge power, Morton said. My ancestors are Scottish on my dad's side, and I have a lot of family that live in Scotland, so it just felt ancient. We talk about being one with nature and animals and light and dark. She was just all of it. The movement came from her being really grounded. Raised in an English foster care system, Morton joined a drama group for working class teens and even spent a summer as a magician's assistant. Because of that, she was ecstatic to learn that Nolan was using practical effects such as puppetry and prosthetics during Circe's spellbinding sequence. It's proper movie magic, Morton said. It's all camera. What you see is real. So this was a dream job for me. I got to do all the things I love. Although award season is still months away, many Oscar pundits have already predicted Morton's scene-stealing performance will earn her a supporting actress nomination. She was so locked in, she was transported. Both of us, Damon said. So thrilling to do those scenes with her. We all knew we were watching something special. Nolan shared that Morton earned a spontaneous standing ovation from the cast and crew while filming. He said the last time that happened on one of his movies was for Heath Ledger as the Joker in The Dark Knight. Comparison is very emotional, Morton said. Heath was somebody I admired. I was meant to work with him on a project and it didn't come through, but we spent time together. It's a bit like Philip Seymour Hoffman. Some actors, they're just incredibly special human beings. So I'm obviously moved that it's been said. But it's also a reflection of how much the crew cared about what we were all doing. For Morton, the most meaningful reviews come from her 18-year-old daughter, Edie, who recently saw The Odyssey and was blown away by it. After decades of career highs and lows, the film has reminded the actress to keep her chin up. And lastly, it feels like a rebirth. Don't give up, Morton said. You can have lulls. I've had times where I can't pay my mortgage, or I don't know if I'm going to work again because of my physicality isn't right, or I can't afford to do the things that other actors can do. I just keep working and feeling really genuinely blessed. Hopefully this will mean I can get other jobs.
The next article is also from the movie section. It's titled, Here's How to Snag IMAX Tickets to See the Odyssey. The article is written by Patrick Ryan. What's tougher than escaping a Cyclops? Snagging tickets to the Odyssey in an IMAX 70mm. Only 25 theaters in the United States are equipped to show Christopher Nolan's latest spectacle and the highest resolution on the biggest screen possible. As a result, it has become a battle rivaling the Trojan War just to snatch a seat to these highly coveted screenings. Most are sold out for the next month. New York's AMC Lincoln Square Theater boasts the nation's largest IMAX screen, standing nearly 80 feet tall and 100 feet wide. But even at that location, 2 a.m. and 6 a.m. showings of The Odyssey are selling out within minutes, with reports of cinephiles traveling across the country just to take in the nearly 3-hour epic starring Matt Damon and Anne Hathaway. If you have FMO about catching The Odyssey in IMAX 70mm, here are some steps you can take to try to grab a last-minute ticket. Number 1, sign up for ticket alerts. It may not help you get inbox zero, but email and text message alerts are often the fastest way to know when more tickets go on sale for IMAX 70mm screenings. Through AMC, Cinemark, Fandango, and IMAX, you can register for newsletters and alerts about additional dates and showtimes. Third-party sites such as SeatDrop and Drop 70mm also promise to notify you when tickets are sold out, showings are released. Just sign up, pray to Zeus, and wait for your phone buzz. Next recommendation, approach resale tickets with caution. Resale tickets, including Craigslist and eBay, have numerous listings for IMAX tickets to Odyssey. Some start at roughly $100, with prices blooming up to $250,000 for a group of 10. But it goes without saying, always be wary of potential scammers, particularly scalpers who are offering seat upgrades, add-ons availability, or multiple dates. Many Reddit users have reported being swindled by sellers who ask for money up front and then ghost buyers. Before sending your money to any random account, try to verify their contact details or check out previous buyers' reviews. Next recommendation, keep an eye out for cancellations. IMAX 70mm tickets may feel like a golden ticket, but life does sometimes get in the way. So the old-fashioned trick of refreshing your theater's website multiple times a day can pay off. AMC typically emails customers a reminder 2 hours before each showtime, telling them to get excited about their upcoming movie. That 2-hour period is when film goers most frequently cancel their tickets, whether because of an unexpected conflict or they simply forgot they bought seats. So if you have a specific Odyssey showtime in mind, monitor your ticket app during that lead-up window. Next recommendation, just be patient. Given the extremely high demand, it's likely that IMAX will extend 70mm screenings at least through late August and bring the Odyssey back to those locations at various points through the end of the year. Other movies like Resident Evil and Dune Part 3 are clamoring for these screens, but that still leaves time on the calendar for Odysseus to sail back to theaters. After its blockbuster run in summer 2023, Nolan's Oppenheimer returned to IMAX 70mm screens in early 2024 at the height of awards season, as did future Oscar behemoths Sinners and One Battle After Another. So if you miss this opportunity, there will be surely more down the road for you to experience The Odyssey as Nolan intended. And finally, hey, if Penelope could wait 20 years for Odysseus to come back home, what's just waiting a few more months for a movie ticket?
You're listening to a reading of today's USA Today on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. The time is 44 minutes after the hour. Our next article is a literary review. Going Dark. Some readers like violence with their romance. The author is Claire Mulroy. Dying for stories with high stakes and deep passion? Enter dark romance, where vigilantes, mafia bosses, and stalkers go hand in hand with happy ever afters. Romance is among the few genres growing in sales, and readers are increasingly shifting from rom-coms toward romances with darker themes, according to Circana BookScan. Despite memes pointing out these love interests are people fans would pepper spray in real life, many readers say dark romance is misunderstood. So what is it about morally gray men that has them swooning? First question, what is dark romance? Like the broader romance genre, dark romance guarantees a happy ever after, but it's a messier journey. There's a heavier kind of backstory that tends to happen for a lot of the characters, said Bryn Weaver, author of Butcher and Blackbird, a dark rom-com and USA Today bestseller. There's a bit of murder and mayhem and chaos. Might be a toxic relationship. There might be a childhood story of trauma. She's got these heavier adult content themes for the characters to explore. Dark romance deals in taboo, whether that be power dynamics between lovers or danger lurking behind a relationship. Serial killers and stalkers find love, sometimes with their targets. Popular tropes include forced proximity, alpha males, and enemies to lovers. Really increases the tension and the stakes, Weaver said. Dark romances often blend genres and may include hints of dark academia, fairy tale, or fantasy. Mafia romances are especially popular, delving into the gritty underworld of organized crime. Arranged marriages can be a winning trope. Next question, why are readers obsessed with dark romance in morally gray men? Leah Land, age 25, is a longtime romance reader, and adding books with a thrilling element keeps her engaged and giggling and kicking her feet. It's all about taking love to extremes. It's really so romantic, all of these things that these men are willing to do for the women they're in love with, Land says. Forget flowers. The men of dark romances may them as a grand gesture. In the Finisher by Runix, a favorite of Land's, the male lead character proclaims, "I cut the hand of a man who touched your hair, Zephyr. What do you think I will do to the one you move on with?" But let's go back to the someone you would pepper spray in real life point. This is where the dark romance genre catches the most flack. Isn't romance supposed to be something you dream about? Who dreams about a stalker? It's a crucial misunderstanding of the genre, Weaver says. Nobody's saying they want to experience any of this in real life. It's very much like horror and thriller, Weaver said. I don't want to go down and get chased down by a clown, but do I want to watch a movie about it or read a book about it? Sure. These morally gray characters blur the lines between good and evil. They're rebellious and unexpected, but they come from a place of love. In mafia romances, action are often derived from rules about honor and survival. Things are very stressful on many fronts, personal, political, financial, says Stacy Boyd, executive director at Harlequin. Reading about men who can take care of people, he's going to take care of that. It's not going to be a problem anymore because I'm going to get rid of that person. There's an appeal to that. And another question, how dark is too dark? Well, dark romance novels often include a list of trigger warnings at the start of the book. This is because dark romance also dabbles in some topics, namely abuse and sexual assault, that are disturbing for some readers. It can be healing for others. It helps them to process that trauma safely because they know they can close the book and walk away, Weaver said. There are a great number of readers that have had negative experiences and find it quite healing to then open a dark romance and experience these feelings again without having to live them again. There's a name for this. Some therapists use bibliotherapy, the act of prescribing books as medicine, to help patients work through their experiences, but for some, dark romance can get too dark. Since she got into the dark romance genre, Lon has been on the hunt for what she calls respectful dark romances, MMCs, male main characters. She knows that some readers might not mind misogyny in their heroes, but it makes her uncomfortable. She had some trouble finding dark romance books that prioritize consent and respect toward women. When she posts videos about her mission, sometimes the comments spiral out of control. A lot of people will comment on my videos like, "Oh my God, you don't even like dark romance. Why are you critiquing it?" And I'm like, "No, you don't understand. I like dark romance. I just like certain dark romances." Weaver and Land agree the best place to start if you're new to dark romance is a comedy. Land suggests Lights Out by Nevada Allen, which has a comedic buffer to start readers off feeling comfortable.
The next article is also from the movie section. It's titled, When Wham Became Ambassadors to China. Article is by Kim Willis. Artfully big hair, awkwardly giddy girls, and two extremely photogenic pop stars strolling the Great Wall of China for the cameras. The footage, long beloved to fans as the backdrop to George Michael and Andrew Wrigley's music video Freedom, is back in a surprisingly unvarnished new documentary. We understood we weren't just going there to perform, Ridgely tells USA Today. There was a diplomatic element to it, and we understood that. What we couldn't have known at the time was the legacy it would leave in China itself. Wham! 10 Days in China, beginning in theaters on July 28th, offers a different perspective from Foreign Skies, the 1986 tour film about their experience as the first Western pop band to perform there. We were already successful in America. We had a #1 single with Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, a #1 album with Make It Big, and Careless Whisper had been a huge success. Ridgely, 63, recalls. The goal was to elevate Wham in the United States to the same level we enjoyed in Britain. I was skeptical that it would work, but it did. It got Wham into American living rooms in a way a conventional tour couldn't. When the duo returned to the United States after the trip, they were playing stadiums, he notes. It was a very calculated, strategic move, and it succeeded. The familiar beats reappear in director Mike Christie's new movie in restored clips. George and Andy engaged in an energetic game of soccer and performing for overly polite crowds in Beijing. Fresh interviews are done with Ridgely, the band's management, and long-grown Chinese fans who recall the formative experience with reverence. But what's captured more bracingly in previous unseen footage is the growing discomfort of the young stars as they thrust into a geopolitical role as quasi-ambassadors. A news conference with the British media ends contentiously after questions about their communist hosts and whether fame had gone to their heads. We knew what to expect, says Ridgely, who made his first trip back to China for the new film in which he revisits the Great Wall. Our relationship with the press was famously difficult. Mine was particularly antagonistic, so we were aware of the dynamic. In the vintage footage, Ridgely raises eyebrows with a glib remark as he introduces the Chinese crowd to the band's latest song, It Could Be #1 here in China with Your Help. It's called Freedom. I was the title of the song. It was exactly the sort of thing I would have said to any audience, Ridgely says. In hindsight, perhaps I could have thought about it more carefully. Still, it didn't do any great harm. Nobody got shot, which is the important thing, right? At one point, George is so frustrated by the inauthentic interactions with fans orchestrated for a planned Lindsay Anderson documentary, he vanishes, leaving only Andy to make apologies. It was unusual for him. I knew he had reached the end of his tether, Ridgely acknowledges. George wasn't interested in wandering through street markets or participating in constructed scenes for the cameras. He wanted to spend time listening to music, talking with me. Shirley Holloman and Pepsi DeMarc, the duo's backup singers, not playing along with stage situations. It was symptomatic of the pressure we were under. But Ridgely recalls the trip fondly for its interesting and amusing moments, including a raucous evening of bowling and trying his first century egg, a Chinese delicacy. Michael died in 2016, and Ridgely, a friend since childhood, says George is ever present as he works to preserve and celebrate the Wham legacy. In moments like him trying not to laugh at one of my ridiculous speeches that remind me of the depth of our friendship, the bond we shared, the mutual respect, and occasionally the mutual lack of respect we had for each other. Wham split amicably a little more than a year after the trip, and Michael went on to massive solo success. Ridgely remains proud of that duo achieved. The people hear the music more clearly and pay less attention to all the noise and distractions that surrounded Wham at the time. You have been listening to a reading of USA Today for the 27th of July. We read USA Today. We read USA Today weekday at noon. For more information, call 716-821-5555. Your readers today have been David Hayes
and Tom Scanlon.
If you or people you know shop at any of the Dash's supermarkets, please save Dash's register tapes for radio reading. Our agency receives $2 for every $100 in Dash's register tapes. Radio reading has raised thousands of dollars so far. Anyone can drop off their Dash's tapes to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, between William and Clinton Streets. Or Dash's tapes can be mailed to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service at 1199 Harlem Road, Cheektowaga, New York, 14227. Any questions on Dash's tapes for radio reading? Call us at 716-821-5555, and thanks for caring. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability